So I wanted the right person to represent the Hudson Valley pro wrestling scene to be the first local guy we've had on here. And I'm so happy to be joined today by ECW original, member of the Baldies, former Ring of Honor tag team champion, someone who's wrestled nearly everyone I can think of in his generation, accomplished wrestling trainer, trivia host, just an all-around great guy. Tony Devito, welcome to Under the
Hey,
Ring.
Phil, what's going on, man?
Not much. Good to see you. It's been a bit. It's been a while.
It's been a while, man. So I'm the first local guy to be on your show?
I think from where we are, I'm recording this right now in Poughkeepsie. I'm in Poughkeepsie, New York. Tony's not in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Not anymore now. Well, I never was, but
you were Newburgh or
Newburgh,
New Windsor
right.
or
New Windsor. Yeah.
New Windsor. So I guess first off, just what are you up to nowadays? You're back wrestling again, which surprised me.
Yeah, I'm doing a little wrestling again. Me and HC Loc, Carnage Crew. Doing some stuff with him. I did some with Angel too. We actually did a Baldies Carnage Crew like triple thing. That was kind of cool. We did that back in February, and this dude Eric Sims brought us around, and he brought us a couple places. We wrestled the show, and it was pretty cool. You know, something never done before. So it was pretty cool.
What made you want to come back to the ring again?
I don't think I've ever wanted to leave the ring. So to me, it's not really a comeback. It's just, maybe I had a couple years off in between. We never retire, Phil. Wrestler, as much as we say we retire, we never retire, ever.
So what's it been like getting back out with Loc? I know you're working a show in New Jersey. I think it's on May 7th in Morristown.
Yeah,
where it's
ISPW.
ISPW Wrestling, and it's a fatal four-way with the Sons of Samoa, the Bollywood Boys, and two people that we both know very well, Vic Delicious and Hale Collins.
I know both of them.
So what's that been like getting back out there with Loc again?
It hurts, man. It hurts. I'm gonna tell you that right now. My body ain't what it used to be, but I had a lot of fun. I did a show last weekend. I'm sorry, I was up in Newark, New Jersey, and I did a show for ICW No Holds Barred. So it's like a deathmatch show. I don't really do deathmatch wrestling, but I love that promoter, and it's cool, man. It's wrestling, so. If you were into that type of thing, that's the type of thing you want to go see. I'm going to tell you right now, because it's crazy there. Those guys are nuts.
So take me all the way back to the beginning here. This is actually, I think, the first time I've ever interviewed you, which is
besides just talking at the bar for trivia.
Exactly. Well, for context, Tony hosted he was an excellent trivia host at a local pro wrestling night that they did on Mondays. So that's where I got to know him, but it wasn't actually in an interview format. So. No. What on earth was it like training with Dr. D. David Schultz, and who else was there, and what did you learn from him?
It was really awesome training with him. I mean, his legend went back before I got in the business, and him slapping John Stossel around, so we always thought he was this crazy lunatic, but he never showed that side of him to us. He was really cool. He knew if we were if we didn't do something right and he wasn't even watching, he knew, he knew by the sound of that ring. And I understand what he means now, but he knew by the sound of the ring that we messed up and we needed to do it again. And we're like, Doc, you didn't even see it. He's like, I heard it. So he was great, man. He really was, but he could only take us so far. And that was the bummer part about training with him, is that he could only take us so far. He was pretty much blackballed in the business at the time for slapping John Stossel around, and he really couldn't get us anything. So he kind of brought Paul Roma in with us, and Paul Roma kind of took the class over. And at the time, I trained with Mike Bell, I trained with Jeff Leibelt. They're both from Poughkeepsie, New York. This other guy, Aaron Ferguson, we went to the same high school together, and we met this dude, Carl Papalardo, and he hooked us up, and we all started training there. And so I met Mike and Jeff through there. Aaron I knew already. But that's who I trained with. So by the time Paul Roma came in, PJ Walker, just incredible, he was training over there also. He lived probably 30 minutes from where we trained, and he went all the way to the Heart School in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And he trained with the Hearts, which is pretty crazy. But then when he got back home, he found out about this school, and he came over and hooked up with us too.
He was one of the more interesting training stories too, because I think most of his training was with Lance Storm and Chris Jericho.
And
Chris Jericho even went up there too.
Yeah,
wasn't even with the Hearts. They had kind of checked out at that point, and then whoever the most recent students were the ones that kind of took the reins.
That's listen. That's a lot of the wrestling schools do that. I mean, I've done that too when I've had schools. I let my former students, help teach and everything because I can't get in the ring all the time, and I couldn't be there all the time. And these guys are the same way. They're older guys training now, and it's the same type of thing. But I always did get in the ring still. I may not have done everything, but I got in the ring, and like Doc got in the ring. Johnny Raj used to get in the ring, but time passes by, man. It passes by.
And any unique Dr. D stories that you could tell that
Oh
would be
man.
usable?
So everybody knows David Schultz was a bounty hunter. That's what he was doing after his wrestling career. So he was training us, but still bounty hunting. And he'd tell us some stories. We didn't really get into detail about stuff, but they had these beanbag guns, and they had pepper spray, and he had all these weird gadgets that we never saw back then. So he started telling us about them. This guy Chuck Sloan, Striker Sloan, he goes, man, that stuff don't hurt, Doc. Doc's like, you're damn right it hurts. So he goes, next week I'll bring this stuff in and I'll shoot you and I'll pepper spray you. So the very next week, we all come in, and sure enough, Doc brings that beanbag gun. We go outside. He shoots Chuck with it. Chuck right in the stomach, man. Chuck went down like a bag of rocks, man. And he's all over in pain. But man, the sport that guy was, he got back up and Doc pepper sprayed him. And dude, I don't know how long it took him to get that pepper spray out, but he was crying. It was great.
Wow.
Oh, it was great.
I figured anytime you're going to interact with Dr. D, there's going to be something that's going to be unique and interesting.
Oh yeah.
So how did you end up in the WWF wrestling pretty much everybody under the sun?
So that's where Paul Roma steps in. Paul was actually training to box at that time, and Paul lived in that area of Orange, Connecticut that I trained in. And this woman bought the gym. It used to be Passarella's Quest Gym. And she purchased the gym and moved it to a bigger location. And Paul Roma started coming in and training boxing in there. So he used our ring, but he also used the bag. He set up speed bags, and he set up this little training thing. So somehow him and Doc must have talked, and Doc set it up where he'd come in, and he kind of took over, kind of took a little bit, but, Doc stepped away and Roma took over, and Roma got us all booked for TV. Me, PJ, Mike Bell, and this other guy, Nick Barbary, who also came. He was friends with PJ. So the four of us basically got booked all the time. The other two guys I mentioned earlier, Leibel and Ferguson, they got booked every once in a while, but they weren't really into it as much as the rest of us were. So that's how we all got booked. Paul Roma.
And was Roma still in WWF at the time?
No, like I said, he was trying to make that run in his boxing career, which didn't last very long. But no, he was done. But shortly after that, he got signed to WCW, and that's when he became a Four Horseman. So Dusty brought him in. Dusty loved him. Dusty loved him. So that was his hookup there, man. And off he went.
Like everything else, it's always about those connections and the networking that you do.
It's all about that, man. That's really what it is about. I mean, look how many. I mean, Hulk Hogan's Hulk Hogan, but look how many of his friends he got jobs for. Right. Brutus Beefcake, Nasty Boys, just all his friends. He hooked them up, and that's what this business is about, I guess.
Even the Honky Tonk Man story of him just kind of seeing him in Calgary and being like, "Wait, you're the same guy I used to work with."
Yeah, right.
This is a cool story. What was kind of the feedback towards you in WWF? Was there ever any talk with agents or anyone else about finding you and Bell and some of the other guys a regular role? What was that like? In terms of hearing from them of what they liked about what you were doing and whatever.
The funny thing is, most of the agents really didn't say anything except for oh yeah, good job. That was really what they did. Tony Gurria was awesome. Tony kind of really did take us and help us out a lot, which was really cool. He hooked me up with a lot of things for my ring. I had a wrestling ring back then, and he hooked me up with a lot of things, and that was cool. And but he would give us advice all the time. We were like his guys, so that was pretty cool. But like Scott Hall, he was a guy. He actually really took us under his wing. He took all of us, and he liked us. He liked all four of us, and he helped us out, told us things, gave us advice. He was awesome. He was awesome. But Tony Gurria was that agent that really did that for us. He was awesome too. Great guy.
Years ago, when I had some interaction with Nelson Frazier, who was Mabel and Viscera and other things over the years, he had mentioned to me that it was when Mike Bell passed away that I spoke to him.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, back when we used to do TV, he's like, Scott Hall would specifically ask for Bell or DeVito
Yeah.
because he knew that they knew how to take the razor's edge, and he knew that they knew how to take the fallaway slam.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you make it look good, and you're going to get requested.
Yeah, there was definitely guys that would request to work with us, or if they got paired with us, they loved it too. Whether we were in a tag team or we were singles out there by ourselves, they enjoyed working with us for what we've known. We never heard anything bad, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
What was your favorite match that you were in your WWF?
I would say I had a great match with. I don't know if it was great, but me and Raven did a house show. He was Johnny Polo, and I didn't Raven back then. So I wrestled Johnny Polo in a house show one night, and that was awesome, man. And I learned so much in that match alone because, I got to work at a pace that he controlled, and he taught me so much just in that 10, 12 minutes where you're out there. That's probably one of my favorite ones. And then I also worked with Louis Spicoli on a house show up in Albany, and that was really awesome too. Because we were all pretty young guys. Getting to work with each other, so that was pretty cool. Well, Raven's not young; he's old, but me and Louie were young.
What was Vince McMahon like? Any interaction with him at all?
During those years, it was mostly like you just, hey Vince, and you shook his hand. But when I came back and I did the WWE ECW stuff, I did the Preacher and I did the Macho Libre thing. Vince was right out there with us. So it was me, Vince, and Sandman throwing ideas back and forth to each other. So it was so weird that I was in that dynamic with those guys. It was with Vince, at least, it was really cool. He was listening to my ideas and, whatever I have to say. And that was pretty cool. So my dealings, awesome. Awesome.
It seems like people sometimes don't think about that kind of stuff with Vince McMahon, that he's going to be like that detail guy. But when you think about it, he's been around wrestling for like 60 something years. He's
forever. Yeah.
He's probably going to have some good feedback for what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's the brains behind that organization, without a doubt.
So he's been gone for a while, and I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I know so many people who spoke so highly of him. What can you tell me about your tag team partner, Mad Dog Mike Bell?
Oh, so you never met Mike before?
No, I did not.
Wow. Mike was one of a kind, man. He'd give you the shirt off his back. That's the type of guy he was in that instance, and he drove me crazy in other instances too. And I think that's why it worked so well. We'd be traveling on the road together, and getting that dude up out of bed to get to the next town or go to the gym or to whatever it may have been, you couldn't get him out of bed. But man, what a great tag team partner he was. We're both young, we're both full of ideas and full of piss and vinegar to go out there and show the world what we could do. So for me, Mike was awesome. He was awesome.
So how does it come about that you end up in ECW after the run, doing all the enhancement stuff with WWF?
Yeah, so ECW, I mean, that was a place that was getting pretty hot. Of course, we all knew about it. I didn't know how about getting there. So I went earlier. They came to Middletown one time. I forget what year it was. They came to Middletown to the fairgrounds, and I went to the show. And I spoke to Paul because I had met Tommy Dreamer in the past. And I spoke to Paul, and, nothing really became of that. And a couple years later, Just Incredible, PJ, he went there. So I started coming around the shows. And at that time, I was pretty heavy. I was probably 285 at that point. And, I got with like PJ and Dreamer, and guys would give me advice and say, hey, what you think you got to do? Your work's pretty good, but you gotta get your body better. So I said, okay. And I proceeded to lose 80 pounds in 3 months, and they all saw it before their eyes. And I think that's what it took right there. They knew I had the desire to be there. I wanted to do this, and, just doing what I did, and they all saw it. I think I earned the respect of that. And Paul saw it, and that was it. That's what it took.
And where did the Baldies concept come from, and where did that kind of?
I mean, the part I know is what they said to me. I started doing an American History X angle, a gimmick like that, if you remember what that is. And it was weird because Paul Heyman, being who Paul is, and his mother was in in a camp and all that. So anyway, to get away from that's what they wanted me to be at first. So I think somebody told them, hey, that's not a good idea. Let's do something else. But I think from that character came the Baldies, at least from what I was told. But I think other people like Angel had a different way. And then I think he was probably told the same thing. Hey, what you're doing is we're going to make the Baldies out of this. And they did that with me, and they probably did it with the other guys. And that's how they kind of paired us all into each other. So, but as far as I know, Paul Heyman came up with that. He wanted the Baldies. That's what he wanted.
And what was, I asked you what Vince McMahon was like, but you've interacted with everybody. So what was Paul Heyman like to work with?
Paul is an evil genius, like everyone says. I mean, listen, Paul let the guys, he knew what he was doing as far as he let the guys control what they controlled. The guys came up with their own finishes and their matches and a lot of their angles, and Paul did too. But, it was everybody together that made that. Those guys like Bubba Ray Dudley and Tommy Dreamer and Taz and Sandman and Raven. And, these guys all had a lot to do with that product when it became huge, and they had a lot of say also. So it wasn't like it was just Paul. It was a group of everybody, a group of all these guys that all mixed their brains together. And this is what you got out of it.
What was the WWF locker room like as compared to the ECW locker room that you were in? It's just, you always hear the ECW, it sounds like the Wild West. I have absolutely no idea what the mid-90s WWF atmosphere would have been like. I
mean, of course, the first time I ever went into a WWE locker room, WWF at the time, man, I was like, it's like a circus. I mean, everybody's a character. Everybody, you had all these guys dressed up in costumes and this and that. So it's weird seeing that walking around backstage at first, so you had to kind of, get used to that. You kind of get over that first initial shock of it. But besides that, I mean, everybody was pretty cool. I never had any issues there with any of the guys. Like, everybody was really cool to all of us. It was cliquey though, where ECW was a family, where WWE was more cliquey at the time. And I'm not just saying because of the clique. It just seemed like there were just cliques everywhere. Everybody had their own group, and that's just the way it was, where ECW was more family-oriented. Not to say we didn't have our own travel cliques and things like that. Of course we did. But we all wanted everybody to do well. And I don't think they always wanted that there.
Everybody was kind of focused on the same goal of getting ECW to
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point it turns to, certain guys tried the politics. Certain guys, worked themselves into what they got, in a sense.
What was your favorite match that you had in ECW?
Probably my first TV match was against Jerry Lynn. So I didn't know it was going to be on TV. And, Paul had told me later on about it. But that match itself was awesome because it got on TV, but Paul liked it so much. And it was a really good match. And you could find it on there somewhere. I forget what it's on. I think it's Hardcore TV on the Peacock Network. But that was a fun match, man. That was a good match too.
Where was that? And was that pre-Baldies too?
Oh, pre-Baldies, yeah. That was when. So I was just doing me, and I was coming out with an All Out War shirt on, which was like a local Hudson Valley band. And I started wearing their shirts, and I used their music there, and of course, because we all kind of knew people in that area, they had heard I was doing that, and they sent me a bunch of shirts and everything. It was pretty cool. I never met the guys though. Actually, I think I met one of them years and years later. He told me who he was, so that was pretty cool.
Very cool. So ECW ends, and then you end up catching on in Ring of Honor, and then just going through your career, it's kind of crazy to see all the different stages that it had.
Yeah.
Did you expect that at the time, and what was that time in your career like? You were there for like a year or two?
No, I was probably there for like 3 years.
Even longer. Wow.
Yeah, I don't remember. I forget. I think I was there the second or third show, and man, I don't know when we left. 06. I really don't know. My time frame's really bad, but. No, it was totally unexpected because I wasn't, I knew who was running Ring of Honor at the time, but I really I don't think I cared anymore as far as, I put what I had at the ECW, and when ECW folded, it kind of, I had to go back to work, and I couldn't just say, oh, wrestling's going to do it. I had a family from day one of wrestling. From day one, I had a child and a wife, and they're still with me to this day. I have two kids now, but,
yeah.
I had to do what I had to do, and I couldn't let wrestling just be that thing. So I always had to have another job. after ECW folded. So I never put all my eggs in that basket ever again. And I didn't expect anything at Ring of Honor. And then it kind of just happened. So, but for what it was at the time we did it, it was fine. Once they expanded and they got bigger, that's when I was done again. I we talked to the bookers at that point, and I told them, I said, I can't be doing any of this big stuff anymore. They were going every weekend. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I had a regular job. I couldn't go away every weekend, come back to work, spend time with the family. It was tough.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, wrestling was never really the only thing you focused on. So you were part-time pretty much your whole career, and then other job in the meantime for
except for ECW I was on the road full time. But yeah, besides that, I was always I was wrestling on weekends, and I was working a regular job during the week. I could have left my family and went down south and made a living, but I couldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I had to stay local. I had to do what I could do around our area. That's why I worked a lot of Jersey and New England and just the local Hudson Valley. It wasn't much in Hudson Valley region at that point, of course, but I traveled to the Northeast is what I basically stayed into.
It's a heck of a commitment to stick with that. I mean, you're going on almost 30 years in the business now.
Yeah.
And
31 really
31 years.
Yeah.
And so much of it done while you're doing other things. When you kind of look back on it, what does wrestling sort of mean to you as like kind of what it's represented in your life? Because it's always kind of been there.
It's always been there, really. So, I mean, since I was 19 years old, I love it. I love professional wrestling. I love it so much, and I love what it did for me and where it's gotten me. And it molded me to who I am at this point now, too. But I love it. I really do. I fell in love with it as a 12-year-old, and I've never stopped loving it. So it means everything to me.
So who's Tony DeVito a fan of now?
Wrestling wise?
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, you got to go with like a guy like CM Punk still, because he is going at a pretty high level still. And my boy Bobby Fish, he's over there in AEW also, and he's doing real well right now. So I got to give a shout out to him.
That's actually somebody I was going to bring up. And so a lot of people probably don't realize this, but you were his original wrestling trainer. I think you and Jeff Leibold had started a school. And just what was Bobby Fish like from the start, and what was and how has he grown?
So, well, Bobby actually was training before that. So Leibold was helping some guys up in Albany do some training stuff. And that's where Fish is from. And he was going to that school at first, but it really was going nowhere for him. So Leibold said to him, hey, come down to DeVito's. He's got a school in Newburgh. And that's like an hour and a half commute for him. But I'll tell you what, man, he started coming, and he came, I want to say he came at least twice a week, maybe sometimes 3 if we had shows going on too. But he'd come down twice a week. He's always late. It's not anymore. I just traveled with him. He wasn't late anymore, but he was always late then. But he worked at the bar business, man. So back in that day, I'm sure he was working late nights, maybe tipping back a few. And then he came, an hour late to training the next day, but at least he came.
I was laughing earlier, when he first came to AEW, they were kind of running down his history, and Excalibur was saying, he's trained with Harley Race, he's trained with this one. I just jumped in and I said, hey, you know what? He was trained by Tony DeVito, man.
Yeah, it's all good. Listen, they're going to give these high profile guys their due, and I guess that's the way they want it. Yeah. I mean, after I was done with him, he went to Harley Race's camps, and that's how he got booked in Japan. That's what guys did back then. So did Harley really train him? I don't know.
what is wrestling training? Because what I find with a lot of people is you have different mentors at different times of your career.
I think it's always training. Like you're always training, you're always learning. So I mean, did he train him per se? No, but did he pass on knowledge to him? Yeah, 100%. I'm sure he passed on a lot of knowledge to him, and that is training also, because you are always learning. We should always be learning. 31 years in the business, I'm still learning.
And then, the reason I even brought it up on social media when it happened, because I actually went up to Fish at a show.
Yeah.
It was an NEW show up in Troy, and he was working the opener. And I said, I didn't have any time. He looked like he was walking somewhere. I just went, hey, I know Tony DeVito. I just wanted to say hi. And he's like, I think he trained you. And I think he was one of your trainers, is the way I worded it. And he was like, no, Tony DeVito is my trainer. And then he was like, I love Tony. He's great. So it's like, that's what I'm going with from now on.
Right. So that's what you go with from now on.
Exactly.
You know, yeah, other people played a part. It's like with me, you know, David Schultz trained me, but Paul Roma stepped in too. So Paul actually helped in my training also. You know, he's not my original trainer, but he's a coach. And that's the way we could say that. Maybe he's a coach.
Yeah, I think those footnotes work well for a lot of wrestlers, though.
Because
you become a product. It seems like of where you are.
It works for the guys that want it to work. The guys that want to listen, the guys that want to pay attention to it and want to listen to the guys, give them information and try to help them out. So
it seemed like you had that opportunity too to kind of give some of that information that you had at House of Hardcore a little bit too when that was still running up here.
Yeah, House of Hardcore, I got to come in and help work with the guys. You know, once again, like that wasn't me training those guys, but I came in and tried to give them some knowledge, which was awesome to be able to do that. You know, as we know, the trainers there, you know, Tommy Dreamer ran the school, and then Vic and Hale were the trainers there. So from the now, they trained at that school, and they just did Dreamer's podcast, and he actually gave them all the credit. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely heard that too. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna be working a match now against Vic and Hale for I don't know how much that's ever happened, but what does that mean to you to be able to get now? Just for the listeners out there who might not know everybody, Hale Collins was actually trained initially by
Johnny Rods,
and then transferred over to you, which was way closer to where he lives.
Way closer, yeah.
So what's it mean to get in there with these guys?
It's awesome because just for Hale alone, you know. Like I said, like you just said, actually doing what he did, he trained with Johnny Rods, and you know he lived in Poughkeepsie, so he was traveling to Brooklyn to go train. You know, I had a school in Newburgh, and he trained with Johnny for quite a while, though. I think, you know, over a year or so, maybe even longer, until he found out about me, and then he came, you know, and I coached him. See, like I said before, it's a good term. I coached him afterwards. You know, Johnny trained him, and I coached him. So it's really cool to be able to come, you know, full circle and get back in the ring in front of the fans and do this with these guys, because now I've known him and Vic for a long time now, and it's pretty cool. You know, it's pretty cool to be able to get in there with your friends and do something like this. So,
when you think of the Hudson Valley, New York wrestling history, who pops in your head, and who are some of the guys that the fans are probably not thinking about?
I'm the only one, damn it. No, you know, it's crazy because you know, not that I wasn't always the only one, because Mike Bell was also there basically too. But for whatever reason, I think I am the one looked at being from that area. But man, there's so many people from there now. You know, I can't even go through the amount of guys. There's guys that come from Newburgh that are wrestling. I'm like, well, who the heck are you people? You know, I learned about these guys, but there's so many now. So, I mean, I can't even tell you all the guys that have come out of that area now. There's a lot.
Yeah, most recent Newburgh one I could think of is Jordan Oliver, who's doing
Jordan Oliver. Yeah, he's the one I yelled at. Who the hell trained you?
and he was telling me that, you know, when he first started watching wrestling, it was going to the NFA and helping set up at the chairs and everything at the Northeast Wrestling Show at NFA.
Right.
So,
really?
Yeah. So he was one of the kids. I think he was on the JV wrestling team at NFA. And then was helping set up, and I think you were involved with the wrestling team too.
Right, I was involved. I was involved too. Yeah, I helped with like the little kids class, like the young kids.
Yeah, so you might have just been quiet.
Yeah, and I'm the one that got those shows back in NFA. So
right. So that was where he started when I spoke to him. He was talking about
really. That. So I don't even know that. He never even told me that. I think I met that kid once. So
I met him once also when he was working at MLW. I did a very short interview with him. But I talked to him on the phone once too. But nice guy, and he's very talented. I saw I don't know if you saw the slingshot off the rope into a sit-out power bomb that he did over the weekend.
But I did see his match from was it the one from the Hammerstein Ballroom? I think I saw.
Oh, from GCW's.
I think it was him. I forget who he worked with, but I did see that match. That's the most recent match I saw of him.
He's a talented guy.
Well, he's way bigger now, man. He was this little tiny little skinny kid when I first met him. Yeah, I told him, man, I'd love to work with you.
He obviously grew up watching you, so
yeah.
Whether you want to hear that or not.
Yeah.
So you mentioned all the guys in the Hudson Valley. We're going to move to something now we're going to call the 3 count. We've been calling it the 3 count. It's going to be 3 quick questions. Hopefully they're fun and interesting for you, and they'll be your quick responses. I craft these specifically for the people, so hopefully it's fun for you. So the first 5 matches when you search Tony Devito versus on YouTube that come up are Marty Jannetty, Razor Ramon, the Sandman versus you as a preacher, Adam Bomb, and the Fake Undertaker. Huh. If you could pick 5 DeVito matches to beat that search engine, which matches would you put in there?
So I'd definitely put the Jerry Lynn match. I'd put me and Angel against Balls Mahoney and Masato Tanaka. Another one from ECW, RVD and Kid Cash against the Baldies. How many is that?
That's 3.
3. I would say my house show match with Scotty Flamingo, but that's nowhere to be found. That would be another one. And 5, I would love to see what I did in Times Square, because I did that whole thing for WrestleMania 10 in Times Square. And I think I worked with Bulldog and Lex Luger, and then out came Bob Backlund, put me in the chicken wing. So that right in the middle of Times Square.
That's cool to see that. And you know it exists somewhere within the WWE library.
It does, because they got footage of it, because they showed footage of the event, but they never showed the whole thing. So that's kind of cool, too. Like, I thought about that one day. I was like, man, I'm one of only, I don't know how many wrestlers in the world to have wrestled in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah, that's
kind of crazy. I never thought of that before.
So you were one of the more prominent enhancement wrestlers in the 90s in the WWE. Who was on your Mount Rushmore of enhancement wrestlers?
Oh, Barry Horowitz, Mario Mancini. Not just because he was there so I'm watching when I'm a kid. You know, Paul Roma, of course, too, was on it back then. So I'd say those 3. So I got one more. Well, I'll put myself on there. How about that?
You could do that. There's no rules here.
Why not?
And this next one is one I've been enjoying asking people lately. What is the weirdest place you've ever wrestled?
I think Times Square. Now that I even said it, I mean, it's not a strange place, right? But that's a strange place to wrestle. Who's ever done it?
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Did you have any others, like from your independent days, where you're just wrestling somewhere you were like, why am I here right now?
I mean, I've wrestled in parking lots and stuff like that, but so have many, many other people. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's not,
But Times Square is unique. So
yeah, totally unique. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations today. I really enjoyed catching up with you.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. And tell everybody, get out there May 7th for ISPW, man. Get on there, and that's going to be an awesome event. They got like an 80s wrestling con beforehand, and then the show later on that night. It's going to be awesome.
What's kind of your take on that match? I know you mentioned being cool to wrestle with Vic and Hale before, but that's such an interesting match.
Listen, I think it's going to be fun. I'd rather wrestle a regular tag match, just a straight up tag match, because now that I am getting older, I'm getting up and I don't do a lot of matches anymore. I'd rather do straight up tag matches like that. But it's cool because it is for it's for the Demolition Cup. Demolition's going to be there. They're giving away they're going to give the winner their cup. So that's what it's all about. So that's why we're doing this 4-way. But if I had it my way, I would be just doing a regular straight up tag. But
did you ever wrestle Demolition either, remember?
So yeah, we did a show in Newburgh back in 2012, I want to say, at the ice rink in Newburgh, at the ice skating rink. And so it started out us wrestling against Demolition. It was myself and Ralph Mosca, Roughhouse Ralph. He lives down here in Florida now too. But it was supposed to be us against them, and then we did something else. We included another guy, and then it was us and Demolition against this guy. We just beat the crap out of this guy and pinned him.
So, but it was Axe and Smash. It was like
it was Axe and Smash, yeah.
But you never wrestled Smash even back in when you guys?
No, never back then. No.
So he would have been Repo Man around the.
No, not even his Repo or nothing. No.
Interesting.
Yeah. I wrestled a lot of guys, but yeah, I never wrestled him.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Phil.